On this episode of Cars with Corey, I'm going to show you all of the tools that I used on the 5.4 liter Triton engine timing set repair that I did on my 2010 Expedition. This won't be an all-inclusive list, but it will cover the tools that you must have that maybe you don't already own, and some of the nice-to-have tools as well. So we're over here at the bench. Lots of tools laid out here, but we're going to start with the shop itself. I definitely would not recommend doing this repair outside. You want to be inside where you're out of the wind, out of the dirt, blowing around, things like that. Here in my building, I do have a lift. You definitely don't need a lift to do this repair. I didn't use the lift to do it. I was able to crawl around the top, bottom as needed to do this repair. So starting over here, bottle of D-Germ. Shout out to Kevin and Mook over at Junkyard Digs. They use this a lot for doing their revivals, things like that. The stuff cleans everything. I didn't use D-Germ. The point of this is just have a spray bottle. Repair was done right up here. I will put a link in right here that takes you to the original video of the repair, but I was spraying the floor down with water. I just used a spray bottle to keep the floor wet and keep the dust down as I was walking around between the front of the vehicle and my toolbox a million times. So have one of those handy. Right underneath of that, we have just a standard shop rag. I buy these at a home improvement store in a bag of 100 of them, just pitch them when I'm done. If you go back and watch my video, you'll see I used a ton of shop rags while I did the repair. So starting up here in the front, one of the things I didn't mention in the video, I did replace the spark plugs and the boots and the little spring deals down in there. These were probably okay. I'd already bought them, so I replaced the boots and the spring deals anyway. They're pretty cheap. One of the tools I wanted to show here is actually really just a piece of hose. For those who are familiar with the 5.4, I've done your spark plugs before, they're weighed down in a hole inside the engine. I learned many years ago when I was younger working at a mechanic shop, the guys there always used a rubber hose to thread in their spark plugs. So whether you're doing those down inside of a bore or not, the hose will basically make it so the threads line up most of the time. If you do it by hand, you take the risk of stripping the spark plug thread, so I'd recommend doing this all the time. So moving up here, torque wrenches. I have two. One is a foot-pound, the snap-on, one's an inch-pound, the gear wrench. The foot-pound one, you certainly don't need to go buy a snap-on one, it's just the one I have. I purchased for this job a gear wrench, inch-pound torque wrench, which is rated 30 to 250 inch-pounds. I had an inch-pound one before, but didn't have the right graduation. The majority of the torques in this repair are 89 inch-pounds, other than some of the tensioners and parts of the timing set. So important to have these two so you can get everything back into proper torque spec. Probably the most important tool, and the one that I assume most people don't have, is the Ford Triton timing set installation removal replacement tool. There are many versions of this, varying in cost. I don't recall what I paid for this one, but as you can tell by Yoo-hoo there on the crank alignment tool, this is a Chinese foreign knockoff of a better set that I bought on Amazon. It does work. It did everything I needed it to do. As I showed in the video, I did have to clearance the valve spring compressor tool. You can see where it's ground down there. It wasn't a whole lot. It was a little bit. I'd imagine just a short little sanding on the belt sander, and that was able to clear. I had a little trouble with it coming in and out prior to that, but it does come with a crank bolt down here. I didn't use it. I wouldn't recommend using it. I used the Ford OEM one. So this set here you can use for if you take timing cover off and do a whole set, or if you just do the phasers. It comes with the used to be called the coat hanger tool to hold the chain in. If you do leave the front cover on, just changing phasers, you have your phaser alignment tool, and then your spring compressor, things like that. So you can do it with a cheaper tool. I certainly did. This hopefully is the only time I ever do this, so I didn't want to have to spend big money, so I figured I'd take a shot on the cheaper one first. As I went through the repair, I'm used to using this style of puller set for the harmonic balancer. When I got to mine, I discovered that mine was not drilled or tapped through holes to use a puller, so I actually had to go purchase one here. This is a OEM tool set. It is designed for those that are not threaded through. I believe it's marketed for the Chevrolet LS engine. I don't remember exactly, but this one uses different lengths of push rods here. You just insert those in the stub of the crank and then push your threaded tool through the end, and that'll pull the balancer right off. So that's one I had to go by. I think depending on the generation, you still can use the standard harmonic balancer steering wheel puller set here. In my application, I actually had to order this after the fact when I was in the middle of the repair, wait a couple days for it to arrive. So on the topic of the balancer, I have just a mini sledge here. You will obviously want to be careful. You don't want to be, beating on the end of the crank like you're trying to hit a home run or anything, but you will need to tap the balancer on. Having a larger hammer that gives a little heavier of a blow will definitely help you out. Over here, I had a assortment of large sockets, but I did not have a 32 millimeter. I just bought an axle nut set of sockets. I probably should have owned this for the last several years of my life, but I did finally pick that up. That 32 millimeter socket is handy to spin and manipulate the crankshaft while you're setting up the timing, putting back in the roller followers, things like that. So, and over here, last but not least, just a couple of general hand tools, but may not be things that everyone has. You'll want some sort of a small ruler. I did metric. Some of the resources that I used to understand, what depth the phasers needed to be were in millimeters. So I just bought a cheap old Amazon stainless steel ruler there. Gasket scrapers, I have a whole bunch of these. If you don't have a set, there are some RTV spots and some spots where there'll be crud that you'll want to scrape off of the engine. And you will need a 8 millimeter flex head ratchet wrench. I had lots of sizes, but I didn't have an 8 millimeter, so I bought this in a cheap set on Amazon. It's actually an Amazon Basics brand, I believe. It's cheap, but it does work. So, and that's really the required tools that you must have to do this repair that maybe not everybody has. Next, I'm going to move over to the additional tools that really just make your life easier that I found along the way. Next up, I have an assortment of hand tools and power tools that I found extremely helpful and useful as I did the repair. As you see here, lots of different ratchet wrenches, some flex head, some not. I have standard length flex head. This is the set that I mentioned earlier that I robbed the 8 millimeter out of. I have other ones too. This is just the one I grabbed. And also having a stubby set. For me, everything was pretty straightforward, came apart. Probably the most challenging was actually getting the power steering pump off the side of the block. That was a real bear. Having these and all kinds of 1/4-inch drive sockets and extensions and things like that really helped. It still sucked. That was the worst part of the job, but I was able to get it done. But having different lengths of wrenches and flex heads will really help you along the way. So along with that, I'd also recommend having flex head ratchets. You can get them into spots where you can't get a standard long reach fixed head ratchet. So have a few of those on hand. I used really these two, the 3/8 and the 1/4-inch, just depending on how much space I had available. They both worked. One other type of ratchet here. This is a Harbor Freight Special. This is kind of a strange little guy here. I bought it not really knowing that if I'd ever use it, but it's really a wrench that has a 3/8 on one side and a 1/4-inch on the other side. When I was doing the power steering pump, I did use this for a couple of the bolts, just really tight in there against the inner fender or frame rail. I can't remember, but this allowed me to get a short socket in there and get the 10 millimeter head bolts out of that. So it sucks to get off. It's even worse to put back on. One thing that also help with that is having your interior panel pulling tool. Some people call these cat claws. I have 2 different lengths of them. What you can do is you can get up underneath of something, like if you can't get your hand in there. If you're trying to run a ratchet wrench, you can kind of push and hold the ratchet wrench onto the head of the nut or bolt that you're trying to get off. Comes in real handy having 2 lengths as well. Also can use these to gently pry off like the front cover, stuff like that. Another one, as far as a hand tool that I found really useful, just some finger ratchets. I know there were some real tight spots in there. The 1/4-inch one's probably more useful than the 3/8. I've used the 3/8 a little bit over time, but I know I used a 1/4-inch on this repair. Just nice, you can get your hand down in there where you might not be able to get a ratchet, or you can spin it from the top with a pair of pliers, whatever you need to do. So next up over here, these are definitely not required, but these are really gonna help you along the way. For this repair, I actually bought an endoscope that hooks to my cell phone. Works out pretty slick. I had one that was kind of a standalone unit before. It's probably 20 years ago when I repaired a blown out spark plug on an earlier 4.6 in one of my other Ford pickups. But that one was pretty worn out. It's probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years old, and the head of it was really big. This guy here, I pulled the valve covers off and was actually able to snake it down in behind the front cover and see what was going on in there, see if there was anything broken, any guides off, which there were not. But I found that to be useful. I kind of did my repair incrementally. I didn't order all of the parts. I got it apart and got an assessment. Like, I didn't know what the roller followers were going to look like. I didn't know what some of the other parts were going to look like. So this helped me along the way. This told me that at least I knew I wasn't going to pull the oil pan because the timing chain guides were still intact. So obviously a light. I really like this one. It's had a rough life. It's got tape on the edges, but this is a fluorescent LED type. It's actually really, really bright. And this guy here, I've been able to shove underneath and kind of tuck it up in spots where I didn't have to hold it, but having a good light will definitely help you out. Along with that, this mechanic's mirror, this really came in handy. I could scoop this underneath the lower sprocket on the timing chain and make sure that the darker colored chain links were on the dot down there, so I didn't have to crawl underneath and get back up and underneath get back up. So you can kind of position this with the light so you can see down underneath. I could also kind of see down inside the oil pan with it as well, just to kind of make sure there wasn't any sludge or dirt down in there. And then last but not least, power tools. Having power ratcheting tools really helped a ton. I had not owned a cordless ratchet before. I'm kind of a DeWalt guy, but I decided to try Milwaukee. The DeWalt one is just kind of really big compared to the Milwaukee one. So this is just an M12, but it did a fantastic job of zinging some of the nuts and bolts on and off as I was doing the repair. The 1/4 inch drive with, I don't have it on there, but having a 3/8 or 1/4 inch socket adapter on it came in handy. And then the 1/2 inch drive, I didn't use that a whole lot, but I did use it on some of the large studs in the corner of the front cover. So these are some of the tools that will make your life a little bit easier as you go along. All right, thanks for watching. Appreciate all of you. I will keep updating on progress on the vehicle itself. I did a short 3,500 mile update. Still running strong, still no timing noise, nothing to speak of. Everything's still running good and no leaks, nothing like that. If I missed anything, make sure you throw that in the comments. Let's build a community around these things. I don't know everything, I just know what I did so far. So if there's knowledge out there that I don't have, let's share it with everybody. So, and also if you're not, I'd appreciate you like, sharing, and subscribing. Definitely subscribing helps me out. Like I said, I will keep updating you. Thanks for watching this episode of Cars with Corey.